My name is Mennie. I'm a pioneer of big wave surfing here in Ireland and also the now infamous location of Nazaré in Portugal. I'm now doing a project called Swim Through Darkness here in the north coast of Ireland, where I swim up and down this beach in the dark, in the darkest and the coldest months of the winter. I started going out into the sea in the dark due to the pandemic. During the pandemic, people were allowed to do their daily exercise here on the beaches. And the beaches were very, very busy. Lots and lots of people came here from all over the country to walk and get out into the fresh air and the outdoors. But as locals here, we tended to stay indoors a lot of the time until a lot of the people would have left again. So I ended up going out into the sea in the dark after everyone had gone home. And to begin with, I just was going into the sea, I was floating around. There's just a sense of escape from the whole thing we were all dealing with at that time all across the world. For me, it was reconnecting to the sea. I'm a professional surfer, and suddenly I wasn't able to travel the world, I wasn't able to surf all over the place. So to go into the sea after dark was me being able to reconnect with it. And that obviously developed into, I wanted to go a little further out. I wanted to start swimming through the surf and through the currents. So as time went on, I started swimming more and more. I started to wonder, with everybody struggling in the world, and me benefiting from this new thing I've found, could I in some way use this to help other people? I decided to take on a little challenge and turn my swimming at night into a challenge that would motivate me to continue to do it as well, but also to in some way inspire other people to keep going through whatever they're facing in their lives throughout this time. And that's what I did, and I started the challenge, which I called Swim Through Darkness. I started it on the 1st of December, and I set out to swim every single night, approximately a kilometre. Now I say approximately because sometimes the sea just won't let me swim a kilometre, sometimes it'll let me swim less, sometimes it'll let me swim more, but I wanted to do it through the darkest and the coldest months of the year, because that's when we were all struggling, and that's when things were worse. And that meant doing it for 100 nights. So it was 3 months of swimming at least a kilometre every night. When I swim here at night, it's just a totally different world. It's hard to explain, but everything you're seeing now is just in darkness. There's something very freeing about swimming in the dark. It's like the world can't see me and I can't see the world, if that makes sense. There's like a real connection between me and the sea as I'm swimming out there in the dark. Obviously my sight is impaired, but I think my other senses come alive. I'm feeling the water much more. I'm feeling the tug of the currents and the push of the surf. Strangely, I feel at the mercy of the elements when I'm out there, but also I feel in control, like it's where I'm supposed to be. Hard to explain. On the first night that I went to do the challenge, it was December the 1st, and at the time I had been very concerned about people seeing me enter the water obviously because people might be concerned for my safety or my state of mental health. So I always walked around the village to check there was no one around, and I kind of got used to who was around at night, and it allowed me to then slip into the water unnoticed. And on this first night that I went to do the challenge, I was going around the village and I recognised a car parked at the beach. It was one of my oldest friends who I know to be struggling for a long time, and he was very, very upset about the current situation we were all in. He saw it as that it was going to impact his life in a very dramatic way. He was mostly concerned about governments and that side of things and how it was going to impact his life. And I actually stood there for an hour and I talked to him for that whole hour, and by the time I left he had actually calmed down a little bit. I walked off and went home, but it was as if, in some strange way, it was as if that was almost meant to happen that night, because I needed that boost to feel confident in what I was doing and to go forward with this campaign. And I went home and I got changed in my wetsuit, and I remember going down the beach in the dark, and I ran along the beach in the dark, and all I could think about was him, and that there might be something in this that will help him or help people like him. The thing was, I ran to the end of the beach, and by the time I swam the whole way down, his car was still sitting there in the dark, just the only car on the beach. And I could see him sitting in the car still, but he didn't know I was in the water out in front of him. And I lay there for a moment or two until he drove off. I was very concerned that night, and I went back out later on and just checked that his car was at his house. I was concerned for his safety that night. He was very, very, he was upset about the whole situation. So anyway, that was a real driving force. There are moments when, of course, I don't want to go out there every night, but I feel that that moment stayed with me, and it motivates me to do this. And there's other motivations too. There's been, unfortunately, several people in my life who have taken their own lives, and I'm sure lots of people watching this have experienced that too. I know people close to me who have suffered with depression and various issues their entire life, and it's a horrible thing to see people go through. And I just feel like if there's something that I can do through my little project that makes me feel great, then hopefully I can give that to somebody else too.
Aware Now is the depression charity for Northern Ireland. We were set up in 1996 as a result of individuals in Northern Ireland who found themselves needing support for their own mental health, and specifically for bipolar disorder. And at that time they couldn't find anywhere to get the support that they particularly needed. So their response was to take their own responsibility and set up the first support group, which later became an Aware NI support group. And from that has grown today the 25 support groups that we offer across Northern Ireland. And these groups are there specifically to help people who are affected by depression and bipolar disorder. They can come along on a weekly basis, share their story and their experience, get support and guidance and advice from others who've been in the same situation. Alongside those support groups, in more recent years, we recognise that we have a really important and valuable role to play in helping reduce stigma around mental health and helping educate our community. So at the present time we provide a range of training and education programmes where we go into schools, to communities, to workplaces to let people know a little bit more about mental health. It is a topic that has suffered a great deal of stigma and that people still have a little bit of reluctance to talk about and are uncertain about and don't know a huge amount about mental health. Mental health in Northern Ireland has been described as a crisis stage, really, that our system is at crisis and that we don't have the systems and the structures and the investment into mental health in Northern Ireland that is really needed to address the problem. We have got pretty horrifying statistics around mental health in Northern Ireland. We have a 25% higher prevalence of mental ill health in Northern Ireland than would be the case in other parts of the United Kingdom. Yet there's 30% less investment into mental health in Northern Ireland than in our counterparts in other parts of the UK. We do have a 10-year mental health strategy that was developed and written a few years ago. Unfortunately, though, our government hasn't been able to allocate funding to resource that properly and to actually deliver on significant parts of that strategy. That leaves us in a position where, at the present time, it's identified that 1 in 5 adults in Northern Ireland have a probable mental ill health condition. And horrifyingly, 1 in 8 children and young people have the same situation. Al got in touch with us back in 2020, 2021, in the middle of the COVID pandemic. He decided he wanted to take on this challenge of swimming in darkness to gain profile, support, to draw attention to what was going on in Northern Ireland around mental health. So in total he's raised almost £23,000, which has gone to help us continue to deliver our services. To put that in context, £23,000 is enough to enable us to deliver 3 of our support groups for an entire year, or to deliver around 60 of our mental health awareness raising programmes, which will reach 1,800 people. So it's a phenomenal amount of money and it does a huge amount of good. So we're hugely appreciative for the work that Al has done around this, and indeed for everything that everyone else does in terms of contributing to his cause and continuing to support him as he undertakes these swims. It's been brilliant.
I think everyone in life goes through dark times, and for me, one of the darkest times in my life was the loss of my father. My father died when he was 50 from a heart attack, and he was the one that introduced me to the sea. The sea is something that's been in my life since I was a tiny little boy. I've got pictures and video of myself surfing and running around here as a very little boy. So yeah, it's something that I hold very dear to me, and I think it's been a current in my life, throughout my life, and throughout me as a person. We all go through dark times, there's not one of us that doesn't, and it's how we react to it and how we deal with it. I really encourage people to look into their childhood for something that they were maybe introduced to at a very young age. I think when you find that and connect to it or reconnect to it, it can bring a lot of peace to you as a person, as an individual. And I'm not talking about swimming here for everybody. It could be the outdoors. It might well be the outdoors. But I think if you can find that within you and connect to it, it can introduce a real solid connection to the outdoors, but also to yourself, into your life. I only realised last year, in last year's campaign, I was standing talking to my fiance about this Swim Through Darkness challenge, and it was only then that I realised that maybe the underlying reason for all of this is the loss of my father. Maybe that is something that's been in me for over 20 years, and I'm finding my way through that. And that's why it's swimming, and that's why it's in the sea.